What's going on, y'all? Every day means every day, episode number 15. I can't believe we're already at episode 15, but in tonight's video, I'm going to give you a little bit of perspective, and I want to convince you that in reality, it's not a gift or talent that you lack that's holding you back from your potential. It's other people's opinions. Furthermore, I want to make the argument to you that your own self-perception, your self-concept, the way that you see you is the hidden key to unlock your potential and the life that you were created for. And if this is your first time on the channel and you're wondering who is this guy with the big arms talking about philosophical musings, well, my name is Brandon Burns. I'm a motivational speaker and peak performance coach. I've worked with clients like Olympic athletes, EME and Grammy award-winning artists, and countless entrepreneurs and executives. I help these people live up to their potential daily, not just occasionally. Look, I got an energy drink. It says it on the can, daily, not just occasionally. See, right there on the can. That way you know I'm not lying. How do you do that, Brandon? Well, I help people take control of their habits, their physical fitness, and most importantly, their mental fitness. If that interests you and you want to learn more about this stuff, head over to everydaymeanseveryday.com. Download our completely free ebook. It's got a habit tracker in there. Sign up for that. It's going to get you started down the right path, right? It's kind of like 75 hard, but better and tech enabled and all the other cool stuff. I digress. Every day means every day. But with that being said, let's dive into tonight's video. We're going to switch things up a little bit tonight because I am not using one of my own stories, which is what I typically do for the content tonight. We're going to look at a play, a very, very old play written by a man named Jean-Paul Sartre. It's called No Exit. And as always, whenever we dive into quotes or stories told by other people, especially these great authors of literary history, I encourage you to go back to the original source and read it yourself, because at the end of the day, I'm kind of just a big armed dumb ape that's attempting to understand life, and so you might not want to take my word for it. But more importantly, I'm only going to be able to summarize a very, very brief amount of this story, and you owe it to yourself to experience the full thing, especially when you read really great works. Yes, there are the overarching themes that we can learn from, but I think almost more importantly than that, every single line of text often contains a lesson. These works are so deep that you're really doing yourself a disservice if you only look at the summary and the synopsis and the overarching theme. You really need to go and look at each individual line of text, because there's so much richness and depth that you can glean from that. So with that being said, No Exit, Jean-Paul Sartre. What's the play even about? Well, these people, it's a group of people, I forgot exactly how many, 4 or 5, somewhere in there, they find themselves somehow or another trapped in hell. But it's not the fire and brimstone hell that many of us are accustomed to hearing about. No, it's far more complicated than that. There's no torturers, there's no whips and chains, there's no fire, there's no devil, there's no anything. It's just a room. In fact, it's a well-furnished room, beautiful Victorian furniture, a bronze statue in the middle of the room. These people are dropped off in here, and it's just a room. The only unique thing about the room, in fact, is that there are no mirrors. Matter of fact, there's no reflective surfaces at all. And this is where things get a little bit interesting, and this is where hell starts to look a little bit more like hell, because these people have absolutely no way of seeing themselves. Remember, this was written far, far before laptops, computers, phones. I mean, there was no way to see yourself if there's not a reflective surface. There's not even any water in here, so you can't possibly catch a reflection of yourself. And, well, what does that do? It starts to cast doubt in your own mind, because now all of a sudden you don't really know who you are. You don't know what you look like. I mean, you're in hell, for goodness sakes. You're not bathing, you're not brushing your teeth, and you don't know what kind of effects that's taking on you. You can't shave. And so when somebody else that's stuck in here with you says, "Oh my God, that growth on your face, it's horrible. It's like a disease. I've never seen anything like it," you almost have no choice but to believe them. This is the point that Sartre is getting at when he says his most famous quote of his career: hell is other people. And that's very often misrepresented. People think that he's just this diehard introvert, much like myself. And, I don't get me wrong, I've been in plenty of parties where I've been thoroughly convinced that hell is indeed other people, but that's not actually what he's saying. What he's saying is that hell is other people's opinions. Hell is when you take other people's perception of you and you begin to embody it. You begin to embrace it. You begin to believe what other people say about you. It's very interesting because it's so interesting that he puts it in the context of hell. And this is not a spiritual video by any stretch of the imagination. But if you read spiritual text of any kind, Bible, Gita, Quran, any of them, God gives you a pretty clear description of who you are. He says that you are modeled after his own likeness. And then he goes on to speak about how he didn't give you a spirit of fear, how he gave you all these gifts and the strength. God paints a pretty clear picture of who you are. But isn't this what we do in life? We reject his view of what we are. We even reject our own perception of who we believe ourselves to be in favor of somebody else's perception of us. This is what the play at its heart is really getting at. What happens to us when we have no self-concept, when we have no identity of our own that we believe in, when we have no self-perception? We become a slave to other people's perceptions of us. It's an incredibly dangerous thing, and it can make you spiral out of control because all of a sudden you become a fiend for other people's approval. If that's all that you have, imagine a world where you have no ability to create your own validation, your own affirmation, your own confidence, your own worth. If that was taken away from you and you didn't get it from God or another spiritual source, all you have left is getting that from other people. But that's a losing proposition. It's a losing game. I mean, you're going after something that you'll never fully be able to lay hold of because at the end of the day, it's external, it's extrinsic from you. But isn't this what most of us do in life? We constantly search and beg and seek other people's approval when all along we could have just found it within. And that's, I think, part of the beauty of the story is that even though they didn't have a way of looking at themselves, they still could have believed certain things about themselves. They still could have valued certain things about themselves without necessarily relinquishing that power to somebody else. And here's where I think that same vein of thought, that same ideology is driven home even further. At a certain point in the play, one of the group members just gets completely sick of the group because at a certain point, they're all bickering with each other and they're all spreading lies about each other. They're all just spewing venom about one another, trying to get them to dive deeper and deeper and slip further and further into this hell that they found themselves in by constantly telling them worse and worse things about them. And then they start playing these mind games and they're tricking each other and they're telling them things that aren't true and they become each other's torturers, right? Eventually, one guy says, I've had enough. He walks over to the door, and to his surprise, the door to hell is open. He could walk right out. There's nobody guarding it. He could just walk out. But he closes the door, and then he says, you know what? I'm a smart guy. I understand what's going on here. I know that I can play tricks on this wretched person who's been playing tricks on me, trying to get me to believe these horrible things about myself, who's been torturing me, who's been making me believe these horrible things about me. I can do the same thing to her. Not only could I do the same thing to her, but I could beat her down. I could break her down so much that maybe she would actually say the things about me that I want her to say. Maybe she would finally concede. Maybe she would finally admit that I'm superior. Maybe she would finally concede the battle. Maybe she would finally affirm me. And I would get that feeling that I want. And so he shuts the door. And he stays inside of hell to try and fight this fruitless, meaningless battle. Isn't that what many of us do? Isn't that the trap that so many of us fall into regularly? I mean, really, how often in life do we have the exit to the hell that we find ourselves in right in front of us? And yet we can't bring ourselves to open the door. I think in many ways, it's the cardinal sin of pride. We want to conquer hell ourselves. It's almost too easy to open the door and walk out of hell. Why? Why would I do that when I could stay in hell and I could fight and I could get that validation? I could get that affirmation that I want. It's pride at the end of the day that keeps us stuck in the hell that we create. But that still leaves one problem, one last problem of other people's perceptions, because we can't just dispense with them. I mean, that would be a pretty bad strategy to just say, you know what, I don't care what anybody thinks of me or says about me. I'm just going to completely and utterly disregard it. That's not a great strategy either. So how do we cope with that? Well, first of all, you eliminate pride and you get to a point where you're willing to remove yourself from a situation if it is not serving you. That's the first thing that you do. The second thing that I believe we all have to do, a point of maturity and growth that we all have to reach, is being able to see ourselves, I used to say through God's eyes. I used to say that a lot. I used to say that we have to learn to see ourselves through God's eyes, because when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we see ourselves through the cloud of human affect, of human emotion. We see ourselves through envy, through jealousy, through I'm not enough, through competition, competitive eyes. We see ourselves through a skewed perspective. But if we were to be able to zoom out and see ourselves through God's eyes, through the eyes that he sees his creation through, if we could see what he saw, all the gifts, the talents, the blessings that he gave us, if we could see that version of us, the unfiltered version of us, the version of us that has not been corrupted, the perception that has not been muddled with by society, if we could see that version of ourselves, imagine what that would do for us. But the more that I think about it, the deeper that I dive into these things, the more I think that God's vision may well be our own. I think God sees through our eyes just as much as we attempt to see through his. And I think that you're able to see yourself in that light. I think it's possible. I think most of us cling so desperately to control and to identity that really means nothing, that we refuse to allow ourselves to see that version of us. But, hey, that's one Jim Rat's interpretation of a very, very old play that's probably far beyond my IQ pay level. So I'm interested to hear what you think about it. What do you think about this concept of hell being other people's opinions, of you being stuck in this place where you can't see for yourself? You can't see yourself for yourself. You have to rely on other people's opinions. What do you think about this idea of the door to hell itself being right open, but your pride making you close the door and walk right back in? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. As always, if this video helped you out, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. And don't forget, go check out everydaymeanseveryday.com, because I would love to help you open that door to hell and get up out of there by fixing your habits, your mindset, and by holding yourself accountable to some standards on a daily basis. Because at the end of the day, I believe that that is what improves somebody's self-perception. Once you become a little bit proud of yourself, not prideful, but proud of who you have become and the standards that you have held yourself to, regardless of what other people see or think or what they see in you, that changes the game. Check out everydaymeanseveryday.com to learn more about that. And until next time, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.